In this video, we're going to see how we can start to manage the interface in Blender and set it up for sculpting in an optimal way. And we're gonna use this model right here. I'm gonna show you where to get it. So we're gonna see also how we can import more detailed models and so that we can study them first, because these are really excellent models and we can learn a lot from them by just go there and experimenting with them and sculpting. And also we're gonna see some additional features that are directly from Blender in order to help you in your digital sculpting. So we're gonna see how we can work also with the materials, and basically we are just increasing the level of difficulty from the previous lesson. Now in the previous lesson, I'm just gonna go back so that we can all go together and see step by step. We started with a single cube, and then we moved on from the layout to the modeling and then to the sculpting, setting up the cube. So in this video, we're going to do something a little bit more complex, essentially. And we're going to work also, again, setting up the interface. We're going to use the standard brush. We will not move forward on that. We will do that in the following videos. So again, this is just going to be a really simple video for you to understand, and so you can do the basic things. So the first thing I used to do is to have a symmetrical interface. And why do I want to do that in Blender in doing digital sculpting? Because I enjoy having these parameters of the brush always visible. So I will leave this right panel as it is so that I can move in the different panels in Blender, like the scene, the render engine, for example, or the world, or the object, and so on. But I always want to keep an eye on the brushes that I'm using and the settings of the sculpting, because this is what we are doing so far. So we need to have it always under control, and so we can manage it better. So what I do, I essentially go up here on the top left. You can see that crosshair. I right click and do a vertical split and create another section of my interface right here. And then I turn this into the outliner and the properties. But right now, let's just use the properties because this is what we want to focus on. And I click on the active tool so I can see the brush. So now I can access the settings of the brush right here. These are the basic settings on the top, but also here we have some advanced features. And I can also access Dino Topo, Remesh, Symmetry, and other options that are really important. So I like to keep this right here so that I can access that quicker than going here and changing every time. So perhaps here I will use the render or the object or the material, and right here the brush settings. Also at the beginning, it's really useful to have this expanded so we can also see the names of the various brushes, but we're gonna talk about those later. And I'm also activating the screencast keys so you can see what keys I'm using. Now, we started in the previous video with a really simple example. In the model here, we just subdivided many times so that we have more polygons. But the more polygons we add, we saw that the heavier is the scene. So we need to keep always an eye on the polygons. That's the units of measurement in talking about modeling and sculpting. So we started to sculpt here on this really, let's say, boring cube, but that's a way to start, and to start real simple so that now we can increase little by little. So we just experimented with a draw brush, and probably you have experimented more, and that's really easy to do. Now in this video, we're gonna add another object, and we're gonna add it from with an external source. So we can do this with websites. We can go to websites and download models, or we can do it with other software. For example, if you have models that you have created in other software, you can bring it in just in a similar way. Now we're gonna experiment with many formats, but right now we're gonna do the simplest thing possible, which is getting a nice model from Polyoven. this is a free website. You can just come here and download. We created other video guides talking about Polyhaven and how you can download HDRIs, textures, models. So here you have really a lot of basic assets that you can use at the beginning. So if you go into models, you have props and furniture and I don't know, like apparel, like gloves and industrial design objects. And if you scroll down, you will find this marble bust, which I think it's a good start. Since we are doing, first of all, in the first part, digital sculpting, I think this model right here can be studied because it's really good and, it has a lot of details and it looks pretty realistic and it's a statue. So it's what we would do in reality with the sculpting. So we will do sculpture, and so this is a virtual way we can study and also recreate a similar thing using the sculpting tools. So here you have the resolution of the texture. This is the format that you can download it. So you can download in Blender, GLTF, which is open source, and FBX. And also in Blender, you can use OBJ. So if you want to bring things from other websites, make sure you have FBX, OBJ, GLTF, or eventually, if you're lucky, Blender. Now, in this case, we are lucky. So we can select Blender, we can click on download. And thanks to the author here, this is free and CC0, so we can use it anyhow. So we can download and we can donate, we can support also Polyhaven if we want. So I'm just gonna import here the model. So how do I do that? Now it's really easy. Now, first of all, you need to extract the folder that you're gonna download. You can see here, I have a series of folders which have been already extracted, and I have my marble bus right here. So I just downloaded it and I copied from the download folder into this folder here, extracted the file, and this is the folder that I find. Now you can see that you have a Blender file and a texture folder. This is for the textures, which are really important. I'm gonna talk a little bit about this in this video. Now I'm just gonna double click and open the file. So right here we can see the file and we can move around. We can study. I think this is an excellent opportunity to study how other objects are made from the web and also and especially professional models. So we can study how the lips have been sculpted, have been made. We can study the nose, the nostrils, the eyes, the eyebrows, the ears, the hair. Now the hair don't look too detailed. Some parts of this model are not so detailed, and some of those have more details. And this is smart because this is optimized. So if we go in the wireframe mode, we can see that where we have more details, we have more polygons. And the areas that are larger and with less details, they have less polygons. And this is a smart way. It's kind of when we use dye in topo, when we create more polygons where we need it, not everywhere. So don't increase the number of polygons everywhere because you just need to increase it where they are needed. And another thing I would like to point out is that this is a really nice topology, a really nice structure. It's clean, it's neat, it's not messed up. So everything looks nice and, really professional. And this is the way your model should look like in the future when you will start to experiment a little bit and use the various sculpting tools that we're going to see in the course. So wireframe is really useful because you can see the structure and the topology. You can see the density of the polygons. The second sphere here, which is solid, instead, it's really important because it's going to show you the shape, the overall um, morphology, how it's the object in its basic shape, essentially. Now, if you want to bring it into your scene, you can just select it, right-click, copy, or you can just do Ctrl-C. And then let's move on to our scene. So I'm going to close this one up. I move here and then Ctrl-V, or right-click and, well, you can do right-click here, just go back to Layout, and right click and paste, or Control B. Now the marble bus is right here. So outliner, it's always really important because even though I cannot see it in the scene, it's right there. I can see it now. I can select it and I can move it up here. Now the standard cube in Blender is 2 meters times 2 meters. So this is small and it's okay, but right now we're just gonna scale it to make it like fit the rest of the scene. Okay, so let's say that I wanna just place this bus right here, and now let's continue. So let's go to the third sphere. The third sphere will show you the material. Now materials are really important. You can see the difference between this one here and this one here. Now this looks much more detailed than the other, but this is kind of an illusion, is an effect which is coming from the material. So this is not actual geometry, actual polygons. These are like fake 3D effects that have been generated by the material. If we want to work with the material, we want to check the material and the texture, we can go to the shading mode. So here we can see that this is our object, and we can also see some background. And again, this is how Blender works. So if you're interested in Blender, now all these topics have been covered in the Blender video course. So I'm gonna go quick here. So you can see this is the final effect of the overall shape and the materials applied. Now if I start to go here in the material nodes and I start to unlink, for example, the normal, you can see that this is gonna now have lots less details. Let me just link it again. So look at the difference between this one here and this one here. A lot of details will disappear. Now, if I also unlink the others, like the roughness, now you can see everything looks more flat, and especially the way the object is reflecting the environment. And then I'm gonna get rid of the subsurface and the base color. And again, we are back to a really flat model. So let's go now and bring in again the normal so we can see the difference. There you go. So you see how many details we added in the air just with this single operation. So normal maps are really important, and also bump maps are really important because they will add a lot of details without increasing the number of polygons. And this is something that is used in video games and real-time application. Even though in the latest technology of video games and real-time interactive application like Unreal Engine 5, the number of polygons that you can use has increased enormously. So yeah, we will definitely still use normal maps, diffuse maps, roughness, and other things to increase the realism and the detail of our characters and of our environments, but we can use a lot more polygons than previous version. Now, if you're interested in Unreal Engine 5, you will find the course in the channel. Now let's go back to the scene, and I'm gonna go back to sculpting. Now this is way more fun and interesting to work on. So if I just use my standard draw, sculpt, or brush, you can see I can start to like exaggerate these parts of my model. I can make it more like dramatic, something also like more cartoonish if you want. So if you exaggerate a lot, that's what you're gonna get. You're gonna get something like less realistic and more cartoonish. And we can start to see also the difference between using a small radius or a larger radius. If you use a larger radius, you can see that you're working on the actual like overall topology, overall shape of your model. It's something way more, disruptive and important than using a small brush. So kind of doing here some adjusting. Now you can hold control again if you want to go the other way. So this is probably too big. So you try to find the correct size. So I'm just, want to create something a little more exaggerated, kind of a caricature. There you go. And I want to have like a really deformed nose. Well, that's too much. Ctrl Z. Okay. So go there and play. This will be definitely more fun than sculpting on a boring cube. And it will help you again to study how things are made by professionals. There you go. Now that's just an example. I don't want to spend too much time of this. You can play around again. Control, just use the standard things, and then we're gonna work with the others later. Control to push, and the standard left mouse to pull, just as we said in the previous video. All right, this now looks way more cartoonish than the model that we imported. So it's really fun, and you can see the difference between one way you can sculpt and another. So more realistic or more exaggerated and cartoonish. Now, other things that are really important. Right here in the outliner, this is a really important panel. You should always keep it open, because here we can turn off and on, obviously from the viewport and from the render, but we also have this extra button right here. Now, if you click it, you're just gonna go outside the sculpting mode and gonna go back to the object mode, which could be helpful, for example, if you wanna, again, move this around, rotate it, or scale it using the standard transformation tools in Blender. But when you're sculpting, you probably don't want to do that. So let's go back to sculpt mode, and instead of clicking here, I can click on this little button. Now this button will make me pass from this object here to the cube. So if I am on the cube, I cannot sculpt on the bust. If I am on the bust, I can sculpt on the bust, but I cannot sculpt on the cube. So this is to rapidly switch from one subject to the other, one model to the other. So it's a really important tool when you are sculpting. And now let's move on. I want to show you how you can set up the view to work a little bit better. So we're working on these buttons right here. These are for the viewport. So right here, you can deactivate things that you don't need. Like, for example, you probably won't need curves, or you won't need text, or I don't know, lights in this case, but probably later, yes. But you don't need to access them directly. Right here, we can also deactivate navigation tools. Since you've learned the shortcut keys, probably you won't need those. But that's an option. You can do whatever you want. And you can also here deactivate other stuff that you don't need, like move, rotate, and other stuff. Now this one here is a little bit more important. Why? Because here we can, well, also deactivate the grid if you don't need it, or the floor, and the text info. Now this will simply free more space in your area so that you can work more comfortable. Now this one here is really important, wireframe. Now you can try to sculpt in the wireframe mode, but it's really hard because you cannot see the model. So when you want to keep an eye on the wireframe, but also keep an eye on the model that you are creating, this is an excellent combination of visualization. So you can also change the opacity if you want it not so visible, so that you can keep having the concentration, keep having the focus on your character. And you have other stuff here, but right now we don't really need it. And also here the skull mask, the face sets, these are other things we're gonna see later. Now let's move on. Also, this one here could be useful, the X-ray, so you can see through, especially when you have more objects like accessories and other stuff, and you're not only working with one. And then of course we know now that we can move from wireframe to the viewport solid shading. And now here in this visualization, and also this is for the texture, we already know, but in this one here we can also work with materials in a way. So if you click here with this arrow, we can see that we are actually using Matcap. Now the Matcap can be changed, so you can change it in, for example, this one here, which looks more metallic, like if you are doing a vehicle or a car, something that is more industrial design, mechanic. This one here looks more like a liquid, but you can see that the subject is really like coming out. You can definitely see it better. So don't stay only on this gray one. You will find many different types of matcaps, or we can call them materials essentially. So this one here is like clay, is similar to the one that we use in ZBrush. So you can, customize this. You can also change here the color using perhaps another color, customize it also this way. And also the background, you can change it from the theme to the world, which is from here. This is the world. You can set up an image if you want, or you can just change here the viewport into any color that you want. You can also do like green screen if you want to do compositing. You want to prepare the, to see and to do photo montage. And then we have backface calling, can be useful to see if some of the faces are flipped. But let me just change here. Let's go from Matcap to Studio. Now Studio will focus more on the lining. So if you want to change the lining, if you click here, you have different types. And I think this one here is one of my favorite because it really looks three-dimensional and it's helping me to understand my character and my sculpting. And if I activate this here, which is wall space lining, I can change the rotation. So I can set this in a better position. There you go. And it will enhance the details, and so that you can understand better the shape that you're working on. So backface scaling, cavity, also really important one. Let me just change the color here. I want to create like some clay color. And also the background, probably I want to have it darker. And then we have cavity. Cavity, it's really, really important because it's going to show you where the ridge part of your model are. So the part that are more exposed to light, and the valley, so the one that are more, less exposed to light, more hidden. So this is kind of an ambient occlusion. It's also called a curvature effect or curvature map. And you can see that the details now are much more visible and evident than before. I also use outline, which is kind of you see it, is enhancing the edges. So you can change the color of the outline. And if you want, you can use specular lighting or not, but I think this is also useful. Now you also have other types of cavity here. Just change and see the difference between the others. So probably both will be the best. So you have like wall space and screen space, and try to adjust again the ridge and the valley to help yourself to sculpt. Now you can see the wall space is more like an ambient occlusion. Okay, now that we have this effect and we start like to create other, details, they're gonna be more evident, especially if you carve. So if you push inside rather than pull outside, you're gonna see a lot of darker areas. So these features combined, features that we already have in Blender, will definitely help you sculpting and understand what you're doing a little bit better. And also you can see how it is gonna enhance the borders here, the edges. So this is also not shaded properly. So if I go back to layout, this one here, I can right click and do shade smooth. Now most of the time you want to use shade smooth, otherwise you're going to see the faces too much and like hard edged shaped models. Now of course wireframe also can be turned off at some point so that you can focus more on the final look of your sculpting and your models. So this will be all for this lesson. If you enjoyed, please subscribe to the channel to stay updated and check our other video courses and video guides that you find in the channel. If you want to support us, join as a supporter. This will help us to create more videos and video guides and video courses. Thanks for watching and see you in the next.